Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Global Fleet Conference 2020 and welcome to this deep dive webinar. My name is Steven Schoofs. I'm the editor-in-chief at Global Fleet and I will be the moderator of today, but I will not be the only one that is going to talk to you. Let me first of all thank all the sponsors of our Global Fleet Conference, making it possible to organize a virtual conference for you. The topic of the webinar today is successfully managing fleet in uncertain times. I think that this is indeed the right topic today because, of course, the pandemic has caused disruption in terms of your strategy, and it is really necessary that we can discuss together with experts how to recover from the pandemic and how to align your fleet strategy for the future. We are really happy that this deep dive webinar is made possible with the support of the Global Alliance element Arval, and that they have also foreseen some insights in terms of expertise that they can bring. So it's now my pleasure to introduce to you the agenda. As you can see it on the screen, we are going to have quite a dynamic webinar today. So first of all, there is some highlights around the global context that we are living in and that is caused by the pandemic. After that, we are going to detail the different scenarios, the actions recommended, and the solutions, of course, of our supporting partner, Arval. And then, of course, no webinar without testimonials of fleet customers. And we have quite some exciting fleet customers that are happy to let you know how they deal with the fleet in the pandemic. And then finally, before that we go into the Q&A, there will be a chapter about going into the new normality and what you can do to make sure that your fleet is also prepared for the future. As you see on the screen, there is a Q&A, ladies and gentlemen. So if you have, during the webinar, questions for the expert speakers, please send your questions via the chat function and the question tool in this GoToWebinar solution. And at the end of the webinar, we will be happy to moderate interesting questions together with our experts. Without any further ado, let's now see who are the experts in today's webinar, Managing Your Fleet in Uncertain Times. You can see them already on the screen. You can also see them on your video camera, and it's my pleasure to give them now the word so that they can introduce themselves. And probably the first to do, I think, is the lady in the room. This is Vibona Sombonar. Hello.
Hi everyone. So I'm very happy to be here as a customer actually of Element Arval Alliance. I actually represent AkzoNobel as the global category manager for mobility and other categories in the HR environment. And we've been very much working together on a new journey, Arval and Element, and more particularly during the COVID period. So I'm going to have the pleasure to share some best practices as well as our sourcing strategies for you to also compare with what you would have in mind.
Okay, thank you very much for being with us. Next is Nicolas Michel.
Thank you, Steven. I'm Nicolas Michel, international consultant for Arval Consulting. Since 20 years ago right now in the leasing business, so I'm trying to becoming a kind of dinosaur in that business, but if I can promise something to you, that I don't want to disappear soon.
Okay, thank you. And then finally, Alessandro Pigazzi. Alessandro, welcome.
Hi, Steven, everyone. Pleasure to be here. I'm Alessandro Pigazzi, managing the International Business Office at Arval. So, real pleasure to be here and to share what we could gather up so far in these uncertain times, and happy to share all this information with you. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much already. And then we can now start with this great webinar. So first of all, some introduction about the global context.
Okay, first of all, we wanted to introduce this webinar with some information that you may, of course, know already. So probably nothing new on this part here. Yeah, we have seen, of course, a strong impact from the continuing period, continuing to impact the different geographical areas. You can see some of the figures there in terms of overall impact on the global economy. With, of course, some deep dive, some slowing, of course, in 2020, and with some, which is probably the good news here, forecast of recovering of the economy moving forward into 2021 at a different pace, of course, as you can see there. Again, these are forecasts gathered from different analyses. What is important to mention is 2019 was, especially when you move into our business, a favorable year up until the first trimester, and then of course the drop is not only in 2020 but also concentrated in fact in the remaining months of the year, which makes of course the drop even more important. And we know that this crisis is probably stronger than the one we lived in 2008. We know that in our industry, some of the values that we used to know before 2008 crisis have not been recovered yet, and therefore we expect something similar happening, especially when we deep dive into our industry. Yeah, if we maybe focus on the automotive industry as a whole. We have been analyzing these trends, I'll say, deeply in these past months, together with a number of external analysts. You have LMC as one of the sources, ACEA. We also have some deep dive information coming from BNP Paribas, from our shareholder, and from the corporate investment banking of BNP Paribas, which has really helped us trying to investigate the impact on the automotive industry. First of all, a very clear indicator in terms of in Europe, in terms of cars registration. You can see that in March 2020, compared to the same period of last year, we have registered a drop in car registration of more than 50%, and this has gone even farther in the month of April. This is not the only indicator we are looking at. There are so many, a number of other indicators that we are analyzing. First of all, let's say also the financial situation of the car manufacturers. I would say that overall, what our bank is also telling us is that the main car manufacturers seem to have the financial solidity to face this situation, which is of course also the result of the consolidation of the market that happened before the crisis, and has probably helped this industry facing this situation in a probably slightly better shade that we should have that we would have noticed in a different context. And therefore, plus we're also noticing, of course, other KPIs. Of course, we have car registrations on one side, but we have distribution on the other side. We know that the dealers are also massively touched. There are some of the dealers' associations forecasting a reduction of more than 30% on the overall, let's say, dealers' footprint moving forward. So there is also an impact on distribution, which has to be taken into account, and ultimately not to be forgotten, of course, especially for our industry, the remarketing side, which is also impacted. And we have seen a similar impact on the remarketing side, starting in March, worsening in April and May, and we see how we hope to see a recovery in the last part of the year. So there are several elements that are really putting our industry in under big pressure, but again, probably with having some of the main manufacturers with a strong financial situation and liquidity situation to be able to face some of those things.
And the possible solutions. So, Nicolas, Michel?
Well, yeah, thank you, AkzoNobel, for this introduction on the global context. And in the following of this, during the last months and weeks, we have a lot of discussion and exchanges with our clients, but also with our mother company, BNP Paribas, and we have been able to identify, listening to the markets, to the clients, some different profiles, and also scenario for the outlook. So the first point that we have identified is that within our client portfolio, we see that these crises impact really differently the different industry sectors. We got on the left some industry sectors who has been quite negatively impacted, and on the right some others who has been more positively impacted during this period of the last months. You can go to the next slide, please. According to this different scenario and outlooks, we can have a few words also about the recovery in terms of global economy. And according to some experts, as some consulting groups, some different scenario could happen. As introduced by Alessandro, we do see for sure quite significant recession this year in 2020, with a global worldwide recession by 3 points. And for the recovery scenario, we are forecasting that we effectively have a new level of quite good GDP for the next year. Globally in the world, it will be recovered with the same level of GDP next year. But we could have some discrepancies according to the different region in the world. Typically, for example, in Europe, the experts agree that we won't really recover this GDP level as we got in 2019 before 2024. So it will take 3 to 4 years to recover the same level of GDP. So in Europe, the recovery scenario is quite hard and pessimistic. You just can click after just to have the next chart, please. Because exchanging also with our clients, we have been able, according to their experience during the last months, to identify some different reactions according to different situations that each company has lived during this last month. And we have been able to draw a kind of dashboard that you can see on the right of the slide, where according to their situation and experience, we can categorize, let's say, 4 big categories of clients that I would call on the up left of the chart the most optimistic and proactive ones, thinking that this crisis will happen only one time and it has a low impact or even sometimes a positive impact on their business. On the upright, let's say the confident companies are also optimistic, but a little bit less than the one on the left. On the bottom left of the graph, let's call them the realistic, thinking that, again, this crisis will happen only one time, but the impact on their activity was quite important from a negative point of view. And on the bottom right side of the chart, let's say the most pessimistic, the one who was really frightened by this crisis, and think that it will happen again and again, and they will have to fight during a very long period against this crisis to maintain the level of business. Just to say that in a world that in Arval, for sure, we are looking and very attentive to the market trends, but also to our clients' experience in order after to propose them the right actions. On the next slide, we can start to talk about these recommendations and actions. Globally, in the generic process, when we have to recover with something which is new or a crisis, you've got a generic process. First of all, assessing the situation and the immediate impact on your business, on the external factors. Then you react. Then you think to recover, you reshape, and you are adapting potentially your practices, your actions within a new plan and a new program. That's generic. I won't spend any more time on that slide to focus more on the cases that we have been able to identify. Thanks also to a survey which has been conducted by a global fleet or Fleet Europe. I don't remember one of the two. I think it was Fleet Europe, identifying, according to the sample which has been served there, that 77% of the samples say that effectively this COVID-19 crisis will modify and impact significantly or not their fleet strategy. Huge number, very important one. And within this, a large majority look forward some immediate savings and also trying to find some efficiency gains for 40% of them. And local buyers, it's our clients for sure. And having a few words also about the energy transition, where 40% of them are saying that this electrification or this energy transition should slow down in the coming months, which is a little bit more for the supplier side, talking about the OEM, the dealer, but also leasing company. And this is what are saying our clients, dropping down or slowing down of their businesses. What they have done during this period, we'll see that on the next slide. All right, they have delivered some actions, the ones against who are fighting or negatively impacted by this period, doing first and implementing some massive contract extensions and rewrites, one of the actions that they have delivered. Some of them switching from outright purchase to operational lease, implementing some sales and leaseback program, but also for any budget renewal issues, looking forward or interesting by leasing some used cars and increasing also their pool of used car fleet size. In a nutshell, for all these clients who are suffering this period from a business point of view, and said that they are really trying to find some actions to generate some new cash flows to be implemented within their company P&L, and also for sure find some immediate savings. In a nutshell, that the elementary actions that are trying to push. On the next slide, we are just summarizing how at Arval and Arval Consulting, if you could go, Céline, on the next slide, please. Thank you very much. In a dashboard and also within the timeline, how we can organize for you all your actions in the timeline, for sure, exchanging with you what are your priorities, saying that two main pillars are remaining, whatever is the situation. Is the first one to ensure the health and the safety of the driver and the employee, which is absolutely a key priority for all our clients, including the one who are suffering this crisis from a business point of view. But also the second major pillar is to communicate and to try to anticipate as much as possible for the future. Communication is also key within this crisis period. We have seen that. And after, we can have a few words also about the clients and the profile of the clients who has a positive impact during this period. The next slide. Céline, please.
If I may just add, Nicolas, if I may just add on this previous one, the sequence that Nicolas is demonstrating is actually the exact sequence that we noticed when talking to clients since the crisis started. Safety was the first priority, which safety, business continuity was really the first priority, and probably the first discussions with clients in the first 3-4 weeks were all about this. And then, of course, we switched into how we can optimize, how we can reduce, how we can improve through the actions that Nicolas was describing. So it's really coming from a field experience.
Thank you very much. That's right, absolutely correct. For the second cases to focus on, for the clients who have neutral or a positive impact increasing their business within this period, the same, for sure, all think that this period has impacted significantly their fleet strategy, but in a different way in terms of actions, where most of them are telling them that they would like to accelerate the integration of new mobility services, and also taking the opportunity of this period to accelerate also the fleet energy transition, implementing more and more electrified vehicles within their fleet for different targets, or reduce their carbon offsettings, or to reduce also their TCO in some cases where it makes sense from a TCO point of view to introduce these electrified vehicles. How do they do this? On the next slide. Thank you. So mainly anticipating car fleet operations, just not to be surprised of what they have to do from an operation point of view for the SMR, but also for the renewals. Having a clear map of the network and the dealers who are opening them, they can serve all their vehicles. Again, to be able to anticipate according to their driver request for the servicing, maintenance, changing tires, and so on. They have also launched some quite massive contract extensions campaign at the other client cases, but they are leveraging some of those services, as for example the midterm rental, replacing in that way all the taxis or short-term rental that they can buy and order on an operational point of view. And from a strategic point of view, some of them, most of them I would say, because in the recent months we have a lot of demands on that matter, launching some OEM tender, thinking that it's the right moment during this crisis to renegotiate or to find some opportunities according to the new models which is appearing over the market, as you know, thanks to the electrification of the models range of the OEMs. And that's quite new in the time being, preparing in that the future to anticipate new mobility solutions, but also to accelerate, as I said before, the energy transition program within their company. On the next slide, as for the previous one, again, at Arval, we can help you to set up your plan, to prioritize your actions. And again, Alessandro, if you would like to have a few words according to the timeline, would be appreciated.
Yes, indeed. It's important to have, as Nicolas said, this clear structured plan on how to tackle the different initiatives and priorities that we have identified. Again, coming from conversations that we have been having with clients and from the main, let's say, challenges that our clients are facing at the moment. So as I said, safety and health is for sure remains a key pillar. We will hear that from some of the clients' feedback in 1 minute, and you will hear that this remains a key priority. We should not forget it, even in times where, Nicolas said, for companies involved in more, let's say, difficult industries, like travel, for instance, or entertainment, or this still has to remain a key priority to be tackled in a way or the other. And at Arval, we offer, of course, a range of services to be able to tackle this in a more proactive way. And that goes, of course, with the possibility of having continuity plan, business plan, operation plan. We, of course, noticed a significant drop, for instance, of the events managed by our operation platforms during the crisis, but we gave a clear instructions to our operation to keep, of course, this assistance to drivers absolutely always available and with the same level of quality and geographical coverage in order to be able to, because we didn't know when this crisis would be over, we didn't know when drivers could drive again, but we noticed that some drivers have always have continued, of course, to run and to drive, especially looking at pharmaceutical companies, for instance, or which were probably more involved. Then the clear action that we have been really working massively and in a very structured way is this contract extension, which is also very important, which we will come back on that in a second, but it is clearly one of the key initiatives that have been identified since the very beginning as a key action to be able to achieve two objectives at the same time. The first objective, of course, ensure, let's say, a cost optimization in the overall fleet budget, because we know that by extending, we could essentially achieve, and we can achieve, a reduction of fleet costs. Also leveraging probably on lower mileage, lower, of course, usage of cars. And then, as Nicolas said, all the other actions that could be put in place, like midterm rental solutions, release of, for instance, used cars, all the other initiatives that could, in this particular moment in time, become very important. Nicolas mentioned already OEM negotiation and tendering. This is a tricky one because the behavior of OEMs is still not fully clear, because, as I said, it could be also a moment in time where certain paradigms are not clear enough. Do the energy transition accelerate or not? We have, of course, our view on that. We will share to you in a second. But it's sure a good moment to review potentially our policy, to review our priorities in when it comes to OEM strategy, ensure that that is aligned with the current situation. And again, we can argue on that, of course. So I will not touch on energy transition and mobility because we will touch on that in a second. And maybe this is, in fact, what I was expecting. So here you see clearly what the main actions are. So when more concretely, in fact, when we talk about contract extensions, essentially we talk about extending contractual duration by 6 or 12 months. I must say that we saw a number of opportunities to extend contract by 12 months, which of course delivers a better value in terms of reduction of current rentals. The advantage there is that the reduction is immediate, it's from day 2, from the moment that the extension is of course validated. And of course, as I said, this can also be linked to a lower yearly contractual mileage that we have estimated in this moment, looking at our clients, roughly 15%. And this is what we have registered, analyzing the current behavior in the months of crisis. The value of this can change, let's say, can range. It depends, of course, from a number of variables, type of cars, countries where this is executed, of course, the duration, of course, the mileage that can be considered to be lowered. But let's say we have identified that around 20%, with, of course, a minimum of 12 months extension, let's say, good assessment of what could be the immediate savings on the new effective rental. So definitely a good opportunity, definitely an opportunity not to be missed in this moment in time. And there is also, of course, another important advantage, which is linked, of course, to the difficulties that a number of OEMs have faced. I was mentioning before, earlier on the OEMs situation, distribution issues, logistic issues that we have been experiencing during crisis, and the possibility, of course, of linking the extension to the using the extension as a way also to offset some of the challenges that today we face when it comes to delivering a new vehicle. Of course, it is in itself an important advantage. And it protects, of course, from any sort of cost increase that we may incur in, of course, in a moment in time where we know that the market is facing several challenges. Therefore, even the new rentals could be impacted by the situation, especially if you look at the market. So a number of advantages to be achieved through one simple, let's say, action. And at Arval, we do this analyzing the fleet, identifying the eligible contracts that could go into this recontracting and extension campaign, identifying, of course, the potential vehicles, brands per country, and of course, having one important thing in mind, which, as I said, is the safety of your drivers, making sure that whatever we do, safety comes first. The savings plan, okay, maybe just if we go back one second to the previous slide. Thank you very much. Okay, just one important message is about the energy transition and whatever touches, let's say, the sustainability ambitions of our of your fleets, of your companies, of our industry as a whole, I would say, yeah. So we at a certain moment in time, we thought that because of the crisis, the energy transition was somehow decelerating, taking a slower, let's say, track. And actually, as we moved on with our discussions with clients, as the crisis was, let's say, becoming a bit more tangible, we actually reconfirmed with a number of companies the ambition of still electrifying the fleet. And this came, of course, from the first of all from the when we started registering the effect of the crisis on the CSR aspects overall, reduction of CO2 overall in the world, coming of course from a lower usage and from the lockdowns and so on. So at some point in time, I think this was a triggering factor to for some of the companies to actually reconfirm some of the electrification ambitions, the energy transition ambitions that were there before the crisis, and to probably, with of course the ambition to reassess them in light, of course, of the situation. And this is where the consulting approach that we launched, hopefully and fortunately, in fact, before the crisis, actually makes a lot of sense now, because our SMART approach, which is a unique methodology in 5 steps that allows, in fact, to identify, reassess our sustainability ambitions in the first place through a structured analysis and cost analysis process, is actually now more actual than ever. And we still believe that this remains a key priority. The OEMs, we see the OEMs also converging into this more and more, and we see, talking to you, this remaining a key pillar of your future fleet strategy. So smart and energy transition remains for us an area of support without any doubts. Okay, we can maybe move to the next one now. Thank you very much. Yeah, and this crisis has also shown the fact that some of the solutions that were maybe not considered so popular, let's put it this way, before the crisis, are actually now useful, I would say, can be exactly. So typically, release of used car, which is one of those, let's say, products that our industry has, I would say, carefully launched, maybe not in all countries, with some kind of cautiousness, of course, and now probably, and of course with some also timid response from the market, is now probably can take some good traction now, especially because this can be done by companies who know exactly that they are putting on in this type of category quality vehicles that are coming, of course, from our network. Vehicles that are immediately available, flexible in terms of usage, very important, and of course with a lot of value in terms of, let's say, the type of vehicle and type of usage that can be done. So probably a very good value for money option, and this is probably, in fact, it's not a coincidence that we have reinjected release into the list of actions included in the journey that we will touch in a second. Sales and leaseback, Nicola mentioned it, especially again companies that are deeply affected by the crisis. This can be probably a good option now. It has, again, even here some advantages, of course, but again, we need to make sure that we are, I would say, really in the, Nicola mentioned, in the slowing down or decreasing, let's say, scenarios, because if we are confident and that the recovery will probably come for certain companies sooner than later, probably this is not the best option, but it can be a very good defensive product for companies in a decreasing scenario. Midterm rental is actually usable for everybody because it's, again, similar to release, but with some, of course, features that make it actually closer to our full operational leasing, can provide flexibility with cars without necessarily engaging on a long-term commitment, but rather, let's say, reducing engagement from 1 to 24 months with all the advantages of the full operational leasing, of course, at the same time. Okay, we touched already on OEM's tender, so maybe we can move to the next slide. So we, as I mentioned before, okay, all of the things that you saw today, you may have noticed in this last week's campaign that has been launched by Arval called The Journey Goes On. In fact, what is The Journey Goes On? The Journey Goes On is a response to what we've been discussing up until now, to the new expectations from the companies entering the post-COVID-19 scenario. What is to their main priorities, and more importantly to the challenges that they have actually let's say, mentioning to us, that have been mentioning to us in this past weeks. So it's a response where we have put together, let's say, a number of actually we've done this in very quick, in a short period of time. We managed to provide a compelling offer which takes into account a number of solutions for both individuals and companies that allow, in fact, to face this post-COVID-19 in a more confident, let's say, manner when it comes to choose some solutions. So typically, we touched on that on some of them already. Contract extension is for sure one important action, as we mentioned. Midterm rental, release, I mentioned already, are part of this let's say, approach. But we went even farther than that, trying, for instance, to really think of solutions that can privilege individual transportation opposite, for instance, to public transportation. And we know we launched, we actually developed further an existing product that we had in our company, which is the e-bike leasing, which was available in a limited number of countries, and we are now developing further. And it really makes a lot of sense in the included in the Journey Goes On, because it's a great way to let's say, again, privilege individual transportation opposite to public transportation in a moment in time where public transportation is still seen as a potential risky, let's say transportation mean. And then there are other solutions, the sanitizing, let's say, vehicles, and of course all the operations are now executed in a way that to comply with the social distancing. So we are privileging our operational services in a way that this can really secure the social distancing for, again, to ensure the driver's safety, as I mentioned before, which remains a key priority. And of course, contract extension, as I mentioned, the contracting campaigns, which remain a key priority. So don't hesitate to go into the all the public and social media, let's say, information about the Journey Goes On and find more. But it is, let's say, our concrete response for both companies and drivers and individuals, sorry. And of course, in all this, a great part is also the private lease and the B2B2E potential, let's say, schemes that we can launch with corporates to finally provide the employees eligible and not eligible of the companies with a company car, with a private car.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. This is already a compelling story, and it's great to see that the journey goes on for Arval and for their customers. Also, this webinar goes on, and we now have some customer testimonials. It's great, of course, that we can share some best practices of customers trying to understand how they are approaching vehicle fleet management in these uncertain times. And for your information, it's Alessandro who is going to introduce the customers. But if I'm right, we have customers that are going to present in a digital way, and we have also a live case study. So ladies and gentlemen, make sure that you are set now for some compelling case studies. Alessandro, can you just briefly introduce the case studies, please?
Yes, you're right. We have some physical and digital experience here. So as we will see in a minute with Ibona. So we have decided to share, thanks to the real cooperation of our clients, with the compelling experiences from 3 important companies. And you will see that they will touch on some of the topics we touched already, but it's always good to hear their voice. So now they're facing this situation. So we have in fact 3 important companies. We have, I think, okay. First one is Gabor Cartridge from General Electric, category manager for fleet, heavily involved, Gabor, in all the actions during COVID and preparing the post-COVID very carefully for a huge, massive fleet. So we'll hear from Gabor what they're actually doing in terms of extensions particularly and what kind of savings they are aiming to achieve. The second one comes from Lee Warner from Unilever. Lee will take us through what he thinks are the 3 main priorities that we need to look at the moment And he will touch on some of the things we touched, in fact, already: fleet size reduction, alternative mobility solutions, and safety and CSR. So, and the third one is from Martin Leito, it's from Teva. As I said, the pharmaceutical companies have been front line of this crisis. They have been heavily involved, and so you will hear from him now. Also, business continuity was important in this moment in time, and how it's important to collaborate and proactively to resolve together the issues. And then, of course, we will have Ivona with us, but I will let her. We will introduce her later. So,
okay. So let's try to start the video.
I'm making this short video just to say thank you to the different Arval teams in the countries who has worked endless hours with our lease extension project. I know that there is a lot of work put in by all the people in the teams. So thank you for that. We really appreciate your partnership, and we really appreciate the efforts that you put into establishing this partnership even further. I think it's a success that we reached agreement on the lease extensions. It serves the best interest of both parties, in my understanding, and it represents roughly 20% reduction in lease rates on those cars that we are extending, which is a very great result, and it will help us to recover. Our different businesses, our divisions were hit badly by the subsequent economical crisis of this pandemic, and these kind of efforts are much needed to be able to get back in a healthy shape.
Hi everyone, Lee Warner, Unilever Global Fleet Manager. I just wanted to make some comments based on COVID. So the first point would be, we will certainly be looking at how the fleet is actually set up now. Do we need as many vehicles? The restructuring of sales roles, the utilization studies that will come. So yes, I think first point will be probably looking at the reduction of the fleet size, especially in the sales fleet, which make up about 70% of our company fleet. Second point would be around alternative modes of transport. So are there other types of transportation that we can offer our employees? Does it fit their profile, their driver profile? Could we move them away from company vehicles? Yes, no. Cash allowance, would that also be an alternative? So some questions answered around alternative modes of transport rather than just offering a car. And then the third point would be around our CSR goals and safety. So we'd always still want to supply the safest and most sustainable vehicles to our drivers. So EV100 very much at the forefront of this. And the transition to fully electric vehicles. We've actually seen with COVID during the lockdown periods the amount of fuel we've actually saved, and it's quite eye-opening across the business. I'm not going to say numbers, but yeah, if you look at the fuel spend across these larger markets where we've got 1,000+ vehicles, then the fuel spend reduction and the impact on the environment is quite dramatic. So yes, a lot more push towards EV where it makes sense, where the costs are right, where the infrastructure's there, and when the technology, the range, and it fits our driver profiles. So yeah, just to recap, first point would be downsizing a fleet and analysing driver profiling, looking at mileages. Second point would be around alternative modes of transport. Do we need a company vehicle? And third would be around still our CSR and safety goals with EV100 and how safe our fleet is. So yeah, that's my 3 points. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Good afternoon. My name is Martin Leto. I'm part of global procurement team in Teva Pharmaceuticals, responsible for fleet area. Wanted to take this opportunity and share my experience with Arval during the COVID-19 crisis. As being part of pharma industry, it was critical for us to maintain production during the lockdowns. However, a big share of our workforce was invited to work remotely, and as you can see, some of us are still working from home. Tony Dolt and Paolo Strafezza are my Arval's contact, and I can share that the way they reacted to this crisis is very much appreciated. They used proactive approach, so they didn't wait for me to reach to them and address some important questions like contract extensions, lead times, payment terms, but instead they reached out to me directly, and they kept a very open dialogue. This crisis is far from being over, so what I can, we still have some challenges and questions to answer. So what I would recommend is keep the good collaboration, keep the open communication, and let's resolve the issues together. So thank you and take care.
Okay, and I think that now we have a live guest, a live global category manager among us, if I'm correct. Vibona,
Yes.
You are going to detail a little bit what you have been doing during this pandemic with AkzoNobel. Is that correct?
Absolutely, absolutely. I'll be happy to share some best practices because I think we're all in the same, context throughout the world, and global category managers having mobility in their scope must probably have the same burden to share, but also the same opportunities to share. So maybe my next slide should be available. Yeah. Okay, just a short introduction to how we see mobility at AkzoNobel. So we've always had a pretty mature way of seeing mobility, with currently a fleet of more than 4,500 cars, and something which is pretty streamlined in terms of implementation of global policies. We do have a global policy that is pretty much implemented in countries in terms of OEMs being used, in terms of CO2 emission levels, yeah, pretty good, I would say, a way of cooperating between global and what is happening then in the fleet management and scope in the countries. We do now have a new holistic approach to mobility, which are now being formalized through that slide, with really a big emphasis on employee experience through mobility change. Also, a lot of sustainability actions, which we are really going to take as part of a direction we've always had as AkzoNobel as an important sustainable player in the chemicals industry. And we also have a pretty aggressive total cost of ownership approach, still taking into account employee experience and sustainability. So maybe coming to the next slide. Yeah, so as I was saying, with 4,500 cars across the globe, and actually 2/3 of them for salespeople who actually sell in the B2B markets, paints and coatings, we do have a pretty big fleet, which we believe we can manage easily with policies that we can then drive globally. So the first thing that we are now doing is that we now believe that it's fine to have something that is consolidated, but if we want to move further, then we should really take a step approach on that, which is very different. So what we decided to do last year was to take a totally new journey, and we decided to go on a sole supplier lease company approach. So it's always controversial to go on a sole supplier approach, but in our case, it's highly beneficial. We used to have two main players working with AkzoNobel, partnering with AkzoNobel, but we realized that we were not able to leverage fully those partnerships. So we decided to go on a sole supplier agreement, which allows us not only to leverage cost, because then, of course, as a one-time, you do get a good cost saving, but you're also able to leverage all the policy and all the, I would say, advice that we can have from our consultants, for example, here on my side, with the ability to work really on a global policy, a refreshed policy, on new OEMs to be then embedded in our policy, but also to reflect better on how can we electrify our fleet. So what happened actually when we did that is that, well, we started actually maybe 6 months ago, and then we came up just in the middle of it a couple of months later. So we were sort of in a direction of doing a new journey, and then COVID came as a slowdown. But what we realized is that COVID was actually also a way to accelerate those plans, although it would look like it would stop them at the first time. And so maybe the next slide. Yeah, okay. So we realized that through actually COVID, we were able to leverage two things, which have always been in the air, but which we never really formalized as things that we should do really regularly. First thing is to extend contracts. So as my peers were saying, well, you extend your contracts, you get cars that are not driven. So it's almost harmless for our drivers to have a contract to actually be longer, because they're anyways the cars are not used as much as they were planned to be. And at the same time, of course, you get savings that you would get from the contract since the beginning of the contract. So it's a massive indeed cost saving impact. At the same time, what we were already doing with Arval was to actually organize an OEM tender to review our strategy in terms of OEMs. And that has been, I think, the action that is anyways going to deliver savings on the long term. So not just speaking of the contracts that are currently ongoing, but we're really speaking of what we're going to do in the next 4 years or more through choice of OEMs that allow to leverage best total cost of ownership, but also to leverage the electrification that we see on the market and make the best choice out of what is available on the market. So yeah, I would say that COVID-19 was for us a way to emphasize even more our strategy, which was to go on a new journey and a more aggressive journey, a more harmonized journey. And COVID-19 was sort of a platform to help us go even beyond on that.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for your testimonial. The final part, before that we have the Q&A, in which you can ask your questions to the experts via the chat function, is that we are going to look a little bit at the future and how to address the new normality. And I believe that, Alessandro, you are going to share a few insights.
I'm going to do that. Just in 1 minute, because time is running. I'm conscious of that. Just to summarize in a few sentences what you are seeing actually with figures on that slide, for the new normality or a potential near future that has been surveyed by and taking the China case, which is quite interesting because it's one of the first countries to start a recovery period. Even within the breaking news, we have seen some new cluster which is unfortunately appearing there, but not only there. But just to summarize that slide, they are telling us that from a mobility demand point of view, home office will probably become a permanent feature for the next new normality, not for sure 7 days a week, but the ratio between home office and working at the office will for sure increase. They're also highlighting the reluctance of people for public sharing solutions and also public transport, scared for sure by the potential virus infections. Cycling and private car usage for individual car trips are seen as the safer transportation options, but it may have also some collaterals with city congestions. From a mobility supplies, the providers are developing more and more hygiene measures, such as regular fleet cleaning, maintenance, and disinfectants included in the car, doing some higher acceleration on self-driving vehicles for goods, as an example in the UK, China, also Florida, putting in place also protection shields between drivers and passengers in the personal car, but also in LCV, and developing some services online for purchasing car, contactless delivery at home. But we're seeing that at Citroën, PSA, Ford, but also Fiat. Last point on energy transition, we have already said that it will impact sales on EV, but fortunately for the energy transition, only in a short period, the sales could be impacted. And the last point, talking about municipalities and cities opportunities, not opportunities, but incentives that encourage more and more free energy solutions to keep pollution at the lowest level that they can. That's all for this new future and this survey conducted by Ipsos. Maybe, Alessandro, you have a few words about also the future of Arval, or what we strongly believe in for the coming months and years.
Yeah, I would like to say that, as Vibona mentioned, COVID-19 has two, maybe three more or more phases. There is, of course, the need to look at the urgent actions, what need to be put in place, and we touched. I hope we gave you a good overview on what, let's say, our industry is looking at, the various actions that we touched on. But it's also important to reconfirm some of the strategic pillars, eventually adapt and change some of them as we move forward, because the life continues, and of course we need to think of the future as well. So at Arval, we reconfirm, let's say, our strategy, which is, as I said, it will be actually disclosed in the near future in a more structured way. But we still, as we said, we still believe in the energy transition, so we will continue to invest from a consulting, from a support point of view, from any angles, the energy transition, reinforcing our smart approach, making it more digital, easier for our companies to use in order to identify and go into that transition more quickly and more smoothly. We will, of course, reconfirm, as Vibona mentioned, our ambition on mobility, new alternative mobility solutions. We were working on this already before COVID-19, and we believe that some of those solutions will become even more important in a post-COVID scenario. We touched, of course, on bike lease, but there is also a number of other initiatives we are working on, and we have already launched in some of our geographies. Mobility as a service, for instance, being one that will be probably captured some of the solutions available for drivers and employees. And I would say more importantly, the sharing part. We talked a lot in the past. We have launched a number of initiatives on car sharing in the first place, but also ride sharing, for instance. How will this sharing look like in the future and in the post-COVID-19 scenario? We'll still believe that, of course, there will be a place, and probably an important place in some cases, for instance, for car sharing, but it will have to be rethought. And in fact, we are working on rethinking the way of the view on car sharing, making it sure for the drivers in the first place, for the users in the first place, ensuring, of course, handless, for instance, access, sanitization of the vehicles, and that, of course, is a full chain that starts from the logistic to delivery to the accessing to the let's say collection of the vehicle. So all these phases will be rethought to make sure that car sharing remains an option, but offered in a safe environment and condition. So will we reconfirm as Arval our ambition on mobility, energy transition, of course, in the future, but the first, of course, priority is to help and support you, our clients, in the first place, to face this post-COVID in the most efficient way. And we still believe that this year can bring to a growth for our industry, for Arval. Of course, not what we forecasted at the beginning, but we still believe that our business will grow and will grow together even in this 2020.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you for the insights. As mentioned, we are coming to the end of this webinar. Still a few minutes time for some Q&A. If you have a question, please use the chat function in the webinar tool, because our experts have some time for answering your questions. First question for Arval. It's a question from a fleet manager who says that, okay, we are talking about contract extensions. This is also something that is done by many multinationals, also offered by many leasing companies. Is this something that you see as a sort now of a permanent step to take, so that also on the longer term these contract extensions will go on, and that perhaps knowing with the 2008 crisis and now this one, it's perhaps good for fleet customers to see if they on a permanent level need to adapt their contract terms and change their policy or not?
Personally, I would say yes. I think it's something that contract extension or recontract is not new. It's something we have been doing even before the crisis. What we have been doing now, we are probably making it a bit more massively operational, if I can use these words. But it's something that it's always an approach that needs to be considered. But let's maybe distinguish contract extensions from company car policy. I mean, this are two slightly different things. I think, as Bibona said, this is, and some of our clients said, this is a good moment in time probably to adapt the company car policy. If that is the question, the answer is definitely yes. Definitely yes, because there are a number of variables, of paradigms that have changed, and we all know what is changing now. And of course, some of those paradigms have an immediate impact on our company car policy and fleet strategy overall. So that is for sure. It is for sure a good moment to rethink this. Then contract extensions will remain as a sane and I think efficient practice that needs to be considered. Probably it will be more business as usual, let's say, kind of action in the years to come. But still, of course, very important to look at and to use and consider. And I think the advantage of COVID-19 is also to have, I mean, in this respect, of course, is to have reboot the focus on this important action that is so often forgotten.
Okay. The second question, also for Arval, is related to the international aspect. It's to say, do you recommend to take the same actions across the different continents where a global fleet is operating in, knowing that the COVID-19 pandemic is not evolving at the same pace in each of the continents? Or is there a specific approach that is necessary due to, let's say, the weight and the evolution of the pandemic?
I take this. You want, Alessandro? I would answer globally, yes to the question, definitely, across the world, whatever is the geographical concern. After having said that, regarding some specific topic, as for example, the energy transition, we do see some very significant differences across the market. Taking, for example, the Brazil or Russia, where this electrification is not a big concern actually. But globally speaking, in terms of fleet management actions, whatever the geography, all of which has been presented today, is available and relevant in any geographies.
Okay. A question perhaps first for Vibona, and then Arval can answer. It's linked to something that was also mentioned already in the presentation. It could be time to review a little bit the policy and the strategy around pool cars and vehicle utilization. Yeah, it could be that due to the pandemic, you have now known what exactly is the use of the car, and perhaps there are some things that you could say, okay, we will use pool cars and not use specific cars for each of the employees. First question to you, is this something that you are considering to, let's say, reduce your fleet and extend your pool cars?
So this is not in our strategy to do that for now. We don't have a global strategy to reduce the cars and have a pooling out of the cars. We rather want to have a more, again, a holistic approach on that and see what is actually making sense for the employee, rather than just imposing something that is just based on these cars. So yeah, mobility is a solution. Doing different ways of allowing people to go from one place to another, but not necessarily to a lease contract. That is, I would say, more the route that we are taking rather than just focusing specifically on pool cars.
Okay, then perhaps for Arval, knowing that there might be a question around vehicle utilization and that some fleet managers would like to see if they can extend the pool cars for some of the functions or in the fleet, but also knowing that perhaps people are more reluctant at this moment to use cars that they need to share. What is your answer in dealing in the right way with this question?
Clean the vehicle first.
Sorry?
I said just clean the vehicle first. It was one of the trends which has been highlighted by Ipsos within their survey, saying that these sharing practices is still a trend, but we have to add some additional small services as the cleansing and the sanity check of any vehicles between two users. So that creates, in fact, new values with new services for these sharing services. In fact, so it creates values, and we don't think that it will be a drop down of such a practices, because it's a good practices to save money within the fleet management. After, we do understand for sure that we could have some kind of frighten around using this or developing these sharing services.
My view on that is that we're facing a temporary, fear to use a pool car, but we're now going to the restaurants in some countries, so things are loosening up, and probably after the summer, it all depends on how the virus evolves. But then at some point, when we master the virus, then the pool cars will still be an option that is just a no-brainer anymore. But there are ways to just clean them, and you just have wiping, a hygienic wiper. I actually do it myself because I do use pool cars as well, and it works very well. You just need to spend 3 minutes before you actually drive to be really on the safe side, but it's okay.
I think it makes I fully agree, and I think, Stephen, from a leasing company perspective, I think it makes even a lot of sense now, because if you think that we have been studying these solutions from our perspective, so I think it's a good opportunity for our industry to link all the services that we normally provide, leverage on the services that we provide to make these sharing solutions safer. Because we have, of course, the logistic aspects that we can control. We have the servicing aspect that we can control. We are adding now all the sanitization aspects that we can also control. So all of this, it makes, let's say, these solutions not only safer in the future, but probably more linkable to the real, let's say, values and capabilities of a leasing company, fully operational from a, let's say, servicing and operational point of view. And I think that if you take car sharing, it also makes more, it emphasizes the fact that car sharing has to be seen as a corporate car sharing more and more. Free floating, of course, is highly more exposed than a corporate car sharing solutions where you can control the sites or where these vehicles are located, who is accessing those vehicles from a company perspective, and how to filter this, and how to make sure that this, let's say, is controlled and safe. So I think that combining the company corporate car sharing with the capabilities of a leasing industry in that domain, of course, makes the solution safer and more accessible for our corporate clients.
Okay.
And this is what we are reconfirming, in fact, in our future strategy, by the way.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry for interrupt you. Thank you very much. We need to end the deep dive webinar about how to manage fleet in uncertain times here. I would like to thank our speakers, our experts, Vibona Som-Bonar, Alessandro Pigazzi, and Nicolas Michel, and of course, the supporting partner for this deep dive webinar, the Element Arval Global Alliance. Thank you very much. For the participants, there is a recorded version that we will put into the event app so that you can relive the expertise that was shared by our experts. And then if you have more questions, of course, for our experts, we invite you to connect with them also via the event app. Our next sessions, because we don't stop with the Global Fleet Conference, are on your screen. So also make sure that you can attend those sessions because we continue our global fleet journey. And then finally, we have the pleasure to announce, because it's really important, we know that taxation and many of your decisions are also driven by the evolution in taxation. We have just launched the new Fleet Europe Taxation Guide with a comprehensive overview of company car taxation in 29 countries in Europe. For the global participants, Global Fleet Conference participants, there is now a unique reduction of 25% when you order your copy. So this can be also an interesting tool to come out of the crisis with the right fleet strategy. And then finally, my message is once again to thank our sponsor, Element Arval, and I wish you a nice, safe, and a happy global fleet journey. Thank you, and bye-bye.
Thank you, Steven. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.